But let's get the Louisville angle. And let's see. Let's check in with man Brian Beatty. As I mentioned before, former Leopard, Louisville Cardinal, and now a great member of our Q92 Sports staff, does color commentary for high school football with Clint on Friday nights on Q92, and just an all-around solid dude. B. Beatty, how you doing this afternoon?
Sammy B, how are you? Doing well. Doing real.
Good. Thanks for coming on. So we've been at this for about 24 hours now. I've been listening to people, getting their comments, their thoughts, and the internet's always a good place to go to see what's going on. Brian, what are your thoughts? The Louisville Leopards, after just kind of being out there in independent land for a decade, they have found a home in the All-American Conference. Good, bad, in between. What's your take?
I think it's a great move. I think we need, these kids need to be in a league. I've been really pushing for a league since the NBC, went the other way without us. We had an opportunity a couple years back to maybe join the Federal League, and that didn't work out. So, now there's another opportunity, to join a league. My oldest daughter is over at West Branch now, and, be able to participate in the EBC for league awards and just those league trophies for all the sports, it's a great thing.
I wondered, usually, Brian, when it's quiet, there's usually something going on. And it had been relatively quiet on the outside of the curtain here lately. And I'm thinking, man, we're putting our football schedules together, and I'm looking at Louisville's and thinking, oh man, another year, no conference. Oh, another year, no league next year. What's going to go on here? And all of a sudden, boom, there it is. And I'm thinking, whoa, okay. Warren Harding, Louisville, Louisville Canfield, Louisville Fitch. Sign me up for that, man. Sign me up for that any day. And I think it's going to help the other sports as well. Obviously, this has been in the works for quite a while, then.
I think I lost you, Sam.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
So I got you, Sam. I think I lost you.
I got you. You're good, partner. Did you get that question, or should I repeat it again?
Yeah, if you repeat that one more time.
Okay.
For me. Sorry about that.
So I'm thinking, it's been real quiet, and then all of a sudden, so obviously things were being worked on behind the curtain. What was the process here? When did things really get serious, as far as you know?
Yeah, I wasn't privy to, the process. There'd been speculation. I worked with a lot of schools up in that area, the Hardings, the Fitch, Canfield especially.
Sure.
So it's been something that, they've wanted done. I think, the opportunity now with some changes, I think this is the best time for them. And, you go back to that question. I know you were talking earlier about, the travel, but really, to go to Youngstown in that way is really not a bad drive. I mean, I know some people were talking about the Suburban League, you go up 62 and 77 at 5 o'clock at night, you're at another 25 minutes. So, and I think, it's a great opportunity, a great competition, just not, the football, the basketball and baseball, that's what people, but look at the softball teams in that league, the soccer and, and everything that way. Track, I mean, Fitch holds the regional track meets there every year, so their facilities are second to none. I'm excited about Harding and Coach Shepis being there now.
Oh yeah,
and talking about facilities. They're up there with anybody in Stark County. I hate to say that, but they are really, really adding on up there, and it's a a great opportunity. And then Fitch and Canfield just speaks for itself. That's almost been a rivalry for us. I mean, you can look back all through the early 2000s. It was us or Canfield battling for regionals out at Regional 7 or Region 7 for years. So there've been some great games there also.
Brian, you were talking about facilities, and I'm thinking you want this to be a good fit. There is going to be a little bit of travel, but I'm looking at, Mollenkopf Stadium, incredible. Fitch has sunk a ton of money into their stadium. Boardman has basically a brand new stadium. Canfield takes a lot of pride in their facilities. And of course, Louisville, to me, is like the Taj Mahal, because you're right on top of the action. It's nestled in a little bit of a neighborhood. And I think that's one of the greatest places ever to watch a football game. So I think facility-wise, and even I know the school's gymnasiums are pretty good too. I think short term, long term, this is going to be a great thing. It's just going to take a little while for people to get used to it.
Yeah. It's like that with anything. People are going to have their concerns and doubts right off the bat. But I think in the long run, having a place, that you can call your home makes it a little bit easier. It makes the scheduling a lot easier. The middle school, that makes it a little bit tougher. And I know you look at Fitch and Boardman in the early 2000s when they had a little problem going back and forth, but that was driving to Jackson and Perry and the other side of Stark County. We're on the other side of Stark County, so it makes it a little bit more convenient for them also.
Brian Beatty is our guest, member of Q92 Sports radio broadcast, and kind enough to join us here on the Sam Bourquin Show, AM 1310 WDPN. So we talked about the travel, we talked about the facilities. What about the overall fit, the enrollment, the student athletes, the way the schools approach things, their philosophy on sports, on academics? How does that fit with Louisville?
I think it's a good fit. You can look at enrollment numbers here and there. I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question because I'll compete against anybody.
That's the way we want it.
That's the way you want to do it, and it just makes you better. And I think across the board in all sports, it's going to be very competitive, and it's just going to make you better. Like I said, I was, when we got kicked out of the NBC, my biggest gripe was, we just get better, and that's what we have to do. And I think we have, some opportunities, to continue to grow for sure.
I go back to the very late 70s into the early 80s when I was kind of introduced to the whole Louisville way of doing things on Friday nights. I had an aunt and uncle that lived on Edmar, and we used to go over there all the time. We'd park the car, we'd walk over, and I'd watch my cousins play under Coach Paul Starkey, and the great rivalries with Hoover and Minerva and Glen Oak and the Federal League. And gosh, who would have thought, Brian, Federal League back then, and then you're out of it for a little bit, then you're in the NBC, that goes sideways, and now you're an independent for a while, and now it's the All-American Conference. Tell me we could have seen that coming 30, 40 years ago.
No, I had the opportunity. When I was a freshman, we were still in the Federal League, and our first year in the NBC would have been my sophomore year. So I grew up with the Federal League for sure, as a kid, and, towards the end, Louisville definitely struggled, and it was a great opportunity to move on into the NBC. And I think at one point we probably outgrew the NBC a little bit, and it takes a minute to, the dust settle down and find a new league. But if you look back before the Federal League, way back, I'm going to draw a blank on the league, but we were with Latonia out there in Columbiana, Mahoney County, and all those schools way back then. Ike Farah used to be the principal superintendent at Paul's. So you used to take that, and it was probably, dirt roads going down Georgetown Road at that time. So.
Right. No, man, there was nothing. There was nothing out there. There really wasn't.
No.
Brian Beatty is our guest here on the Sam Bourquin Show, 1310 WDPN. So this will be, in effect, the last year for most sports as an independent, and then 26 we get cranking up, and then 27 football jumps in. What do you suspect that the football scheduling will be like now that you've got at least almost half of your games now that are kind of done for you? What will the philosophy be for those other 4 or 5 non-conference games moving forward into the next 5-10 years?
Well, I'm going to make sure priority number one is Hoover.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
You got to keep the Hoover, game there. That's, I want to say second or third, probably longest rivalry in the county. But you want to keep Hoover, and from there, you got to schedule, wins, and you got to look at that. It's a little bit easier now, to get in the playoffs. Louisville sitting in Division II down there in the Columbus region, in football. So you got to get the wins to get the points, but you got to make sure you can stay healthy that way. But there's opportunities. You still have that open week in the Federal League. So you don't want to overwhelm yourself because we all know what the Federal League is like. Playing them, it's a different ball game too. So there's some opportunities. Maybe some of the NBC teams. I love playing Northwest. With Coach DeMarco, that's a great opportunity, a great school. So, I guess they'll probably just go from there.
Brian, do you know if you heard anything? And I'm just speculating because to me it's still a relatively small league as far as numbers. Do you see the All-American Conference trying to expand at all down the road?
That would be great. If you could get the Alliance on board, maybe, and I don't know, Westman, this is complete speculation, maybe, I've always, I hope Louisville, I'm not privy to everything went on, with everything this way, that we just didn't jump right away because, I would love to see, a little bit bigger league, where you're not playing, you don't have to play the home and away, to fill up the schedule. That way you can just play them once, especially the non-revenue school sports that way. But, yeah, it'd be great, to completely turn the table. I've always said it would be great to have a Pac-10, a two-tier Pac-7, that way, so you never know down the road, you could have, Louisville join with South, Northwest, Alliance, and Marlington, and then have a lower tier. I would like to see a little bit bigger. And, and the way the schools are going now, financially, you want to be able to, keep stuff local and get your crowds, because it all comes down to revenue. And, no matter what, you want your crowds. And I think this league is going to bring the crowds. I hope, I've been to Boardman games and Fitch games. They travel well. They've come here, different opportunities in different sports. So, that's deep down inside, it does come down to the dollar sign too. So.
Yep, that's kind of that way with everything. I know I had always hoped. I don't know if you're on the same page. I know a lot of people in Louisville and even just the football frenzy people in Stark County. They always kind of wondered. They kind of hoped that there would be a reunion with Louisville in the Federal League. And for whatever reasons, over the decades, it didn't happen. I understand it got close, really close once, but things just didn't happen, and the deal never happened. Is there a part of you that wishes that still could or maybe still would have happened then?
Yeah, I was 100% behind it. Now I know that, it sounds like we kind of fumbled the ball at the last minute on that, and, what happens is what happened. But, when I look at the Federal League, it's tough. We look at football alone, football it's a meat grinder, especially size. I mean, you look at Lake, we're even a lot smaller in Lake, and they have a battle. But I'm telling you, in other sports across the board,
you're right there.
Our boys basketball team, they had some great games. I mean, this year, the Hoover game alone, I mean, you've seen how you get their best shot. And then, you look at some of the non-rev sports, women's, softball and stuff. You're playing a Federal League schedule, and then you won't see that type of competition until you get the regionals.
Right.
I mean, honestly, so you might not be winning titles, and really the only team it seems like that really wins all the titles is Jackson. So they get the all sports trophy, but what a great battle in all the other sports, and how it would prepare you, for the, onward. You still get the league. You worry about when you do get outside, and this was always, I go back to Coach DeMarco, one of my favorites. When you get outside the county, you don't want to lose the county media either. For all county, and that's something, when you look at it, you got to watch, because you don't want to just disappear. So, you just don't want to disappear into Youngstown, because, Stark County is the heart of it all. There's no doubt.
Brian Beatty's our guest, former Leopard, Louisville Cardinal, member of our Q92 Sports color commentator team on football on Friday nights. So before we go, this is a little bit of a loaded question, but I think you're the right guy to answer it. We're sitting here right now, Brian. It's 2025. If I just came up to you off the street, I know nothing about anything around here, and I say, hey, can you tell me about the Louisville Leopard football program today? How would you explain it?
Today, I would say they're competitive. They're not. Everyone wants to look back to the '90s, and they're a competitive bunch that work hard, and we have a great leader at the helm right now with Coach Kappas. The big fan of him. I mean, we were blessed to have him. So a competitive bunch, and that's heading in the right way. I truly believe we're heading in the right direction. And it's been a rough. I mean, no matter what, you feel bad. You you want those undefeated seasons back. But it's tough when you're independent and you're playing those meat grinders. You want to be, and the first step is get back in the playoffs and get that first playoff win and go from there. I look back, I was excited that I saw Fitch on the schedule. The year, I think it was 15, we got demolished over there. 37-19, we got crushed. And we came back and we beat South week 10. And first film we put in was Fitch. And said, if we want to go and move on, we got to play and be able to beat teams like this in the playoffs. And that's the year we were a fourth down away from beating Hoban and moving on. So,
that close.
The competition, the competition makes you better. There's no doubt. So, but yeah, to answer that question, I guess, they're a competitive bunch. That's what I see right now for sure.
Well, we all know that have experienced it, and those who haven't need to. There's nothing quite like a Friday night in Louisville during the fall, during the football season. There's just you got to experience it. I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face, but it's a pretty cool deal. Brian, before we let you go, I noticed you answered on our poll question of the day about your favorite Pro Football Hall of Famer, and you picked Sweetness. Why did you go with Walter Payton?
It just his running style, but we didn't have YouTube and all the fun stuff these kids have now. The instant gratification, just watching Walter Payton run the ball, and I grew up with, and when he scored, it was my dad's thing, act like you've been there. He was one. He scored, and he gave that ball right to the official and ran right back to the sideline with Dicka. And he was I just loved he ran hard, but at the same time, he danced with that ball. I mean, he got that nickname for a reason. It's one of the best. So he was sweet. There's no doubt about that.
He was something. Well, Brian, I appreciate you coming on today, adding a little bit of insight to the Louisville move. Going to be a brand new era now, member of the All-American Conference beginning 2026. Hey, Ben, we'll see you soon here for high school football. And until then, enjoy your summer.
Absolutely. Can I just shout out to my daughter turned 18 today.
Do it.
My Sammy B. Yeah, she turned 18 today. So happy birthday, Sammy. And one other thing, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, we lost one of the best supporters of Leopard football, Leopard Touchdown Club, Tammy Desiato.
Yes, I saw that.
An amazing, amazing woman that did so much behind the scenes for young men in this community. And I just want to tell her family that we're praying and thinking of them all. She was a great loss, and she was a wonderful woman. So I appreciate it, Sam.
You got it. Thanks, Brian. We'll see you soon, pal. There he goes. Brian Beatty joining us here on the Sam Bourquin Show, AM 1310 WDPN.